Welcome back to the morning show. Now, lots of texts and emails in for Adele Gargan, our baby sleep consultant from Baby Sleep Academy this morning. Welcome into studio. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Just very quickly before we get on to this, a couple of requests about tickets for the Ultimate Girls Day Out. Tickets are around €20. You can get 2 for €30, the special promotional codes. You can get all the details, by the way, on that at ultimategirlsdayout.com. Really appreciate you coming in. Lots of people texting, and I think if anybody that has children, it's something that at some stage, even if you do have a good sleeper and someone that goes down well in the evenings, it might rear its head at some stage, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
So you come across all sorts of people that have said everything was grand and then this
I've
happened.
come across it with my own children as well, and it's very difficult. If you're suffering from sleep deprivation, it affects the whole family, and it's very difficult to cope with. So I think, yes, anyone with a child pretty much has come across it at some stage.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons that I became interested in this whole topic is because I have a little 1-year-old, Roddy, and he was absolutely fine for sleeping. Always has been. Went down at sort of 7ish, slept in his own room from quite young, and has been great. And doesn't really wake up in the middle of the night, apart from very occasionally. But recently enough, as I was crying out for help on the breakfast show, I was saying he's become an early riser. Okay. And we're talking like 5, sort of. And I was trying lots of different things. Before you maybe tell me in that particular instance what are the best things to do, I've read books that say there's no such thing as an early riser. Is this true?
Well, yes, no, really. Early risers sort of can evolve depending on what way their daily routine is. So, like myself, I wake up at 7 o'clock. I've always woke up at 7 o'clock. Come Saturday, I will wake up at 7 o'clock. If your child starts to wake up at 5 and you feed your child, or he might get very used to waking up at 5, and then you get your early riser. Likewise, if your child has slept a lot during the day and they have got all of their sleep requirements during the day and whatever amount of hours they've had at night, they may start waking up at 5. So if your child is waking up at 5, you need to look at what's going on during the day by reducing their naps gradually. You can't just cut them out if they're used to having a 2-hour nap. You reduce them down by 10 to 15 minutes, and you need to give it about 3 days to see any effects. You need to give it 3 days to see the outcome. If your child is 6 months old and you're down to a 1-hour nap, then obviously that's not the problem. Yeah. You look and see how much you're feeding your child in the morning. If your child is waking up at 5 and you're giving him a full bottle, he's starting his day off at 5 o'clock for his nutritional needs. So his body's hungry at 5 o'clock and you're feeding him. Now, you can't let your child starve either at 5 o'clock. You would give him a small amount, as small as you can get away with, to settle your child back to sleep, and then give him the rest of the bottle when you want your child to wake up at 7 or whatever time you have your routine built around. Okay. So that would be a way to get around it.
Because a lot of people do, and in fairness, I found with Roddy, you think, okay, what can I do at this hour of the morning to try and help the situation? A couple of ounces, a bottle, and normally I had been given a full bottle, but then I heard maybe just give a little bit to try and help him get back off. You know?
Because he could be genuinely hungry. If he's used to getting that bottle, he could be genuinely hungry at that time.
Okay. So. And that's just bringing me to, while you say that about the hunger, the evening meal, I moved to that later. I was having it at, by probably 4:45, 5 o'clock. I moved it a little bit later on. Is that maybe a thing you could look at doing as well?
It is, yeah. You look throughout the day when your child is feeding and how much they're taking in. The evening meal would be generally around 5:30 they'd have a meal, and then they'd have a bottle then before they go to bed. But again, it's very important that your child is awake enough to have that bottle, that it's not too late and they're not falling asleep on the bottle.
Because they rely on it as an aid then,
they use it as a calming. The sucking is calming for them rather than feeding for them. So it's all about sort of juggling the times around. Now, your child isn't a robot either, so you sort of look at your child and watch your child, and as soon as you see your child getting sleepy, that's the time you start getting the bottle in before they've gone to the overtired stage.
Yeah. Okay. And it's all about that sort of routine around that time as well. I've there's texts and emails in here. Just the first one here. My baby's 6 months old, has started sleeping on her side. I've tried moving her back on her back, but she keeps moving back onto her side. Is this safe?
Well, it is. Depending on the child. If your child is able to roll from front to back and back to front and able to hold up their head, then listen, you've nothing to worry about. If it's a small baby, that isn't able to move, then you might try and putting sort of blankets underneath them, or there's all sorts of things you can buy now, sort of pillows and that you can use. But at that stage, at 6 months, they're strong enough, their necks are strong enough, so I wouldn't worry about that at all. It's fine.
Okay, lots of texts coming in about the soother. My toddler keeps losing his soother in the middle of the night and calling out for me to find it. Any suggestions on what I might do? Would you be anti-soother or?
Well, no, soothers are great during the day. There's nothing wrong with the soother, just not as long as they're not used as a sleep aid. I had it with my own child. How I got involved in all of this was she kept waking up every 20 minutes looking for her soother during the night. So I feel this lady's pain.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't allow your child to fall asleep on the soother. Now, some kids don't have a problem with it.
It's absolutely fine. They don't look for it.
But a lot of kids then will, especially when they get that bit older, they'll start looking for it. So to break that habit, really, when you see your child falling asleep, take the soother out and push up their chin, and it'll stop the sucking motion. Now, you sort of have to do that when the child is quite young. So especially if you've got a colicky baby or reflux or that, you'll do anything to settle the child. So you can give it to them to calm them. But if you see their eyes drooping, then take it out.
Try and take it out so they're not relying on it just to get back to sleep.
Yeah, and if they start fussing again, give it back and then take it out as they calm down and keep doing that. It might take a little bit of time, but after a while they'll get used to falling off to sleep. You have to have patience with these things, and give it time to.
And maybe try a soother clip for the evening as well if they're a bit older.
For the older
because
child,
if they're looking for it and they just know they can just grab it. That's what I've actually
done.
There's
lots of different ones out there.
Yeah.
And a soother clip, especially if they're 1 or 2. Absolutely,
because they're old enough for it not to be of any danger. So if you've tried, you've changed the naps, you're managing to get them to bed at a certain time, like I did. I changed the naps. This was one nap every day. They started doing it in creche and they're great there, sort of. And then you go, okay, that's the way it's going to be from now on. And then he was going to bed at 7. He had the soother clip. Everything seemed to be having a bit of a late dinner. Still waking at 5. I mean, do you eventually go, oh, here, listen, is this just going to be the way it's going to be?
No. I would advise every parent really to keep a diary and watch the daily routine and see how much he's drinking in the morning, and how do you get your child back to sleep when he wakes up at all? He's just up.
He just won't. No, and I mean, the whole coming back into the bed thing. I know that's not ideal. We never did that, you see, and now we're trying to do it, and he won't have any of it. He's like, "What are you doing?" You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just purely at the weekends or at the odd time because it's so early. Sometimes you're just like, "Oh God, it's dark," because it's dark at 5 now.
It's very hard to get up.
Yeah. So
what I would say is, be persistent in your approach, whatever it is. You plan it out, whatever it is. Now, I don't agree with control crying personally.
You don't?
Not at all.
Not at all. No.
Not at all. No. Now I know I did it with my first child, and when I was doing it, I was thinking this is crazy because I have my own creche, and it went against everything I learned in childcare. So I found out other ways of doing it when my second child came along, and. There is lots of other ways of doing it
that are effective if you don't want it. Because I mean, control crying, even if some people do believe it works, it has to be upsetting for anybody that has to take part in it.
She was crying. I don't know who was more upset.
Yeah,
my husband left the house. So no, always be reassuring to your child. So say 5 o'clock in the morning, your little fella wakes up, go into him, say shh, night time, say I'll be back in a minute. I'll check on you in a minute, leaves the room. If you start screaming, go back to him, keep going back to him. But you have to be prepared yourself to be up at that time for a few mornings, to solve the problem. Yeah. So you keep going back into him and not letting him get hysterical, but just to put him lying down so that he knows he should be going back to sleep. Now, you'll have a few mornings of hell.
And a couple of ounces maybe of the bottle, but not the full bottle till the full time he's due to be getting up.
Exactly. Okay. If it's 7 o'clock you want him to get up, then give him the rest of the bottle. So that will change his body clock that he's not hungry at 5 o'clock then.
Right.
And it'll push it out to 7 if he's not getting his whole bottle at 5 o'clock.
Okay. And many people listening in as well have been texting in about waking up during the night. Yes. This is something that happens quite regularly. And I know Annika said, I always give my baby bottles twice. Between midnight and 6. I mean, that's just exhausting, isn't it, for anyone?
Well, it depends on the age. You have to be realistic as well. If you've got a small baby, it's just not possible for them to go through the night. A full night's sleep for a small baby is 5 hours. After that, then, when your child is older, they should be able to go through the night. And if that lady's child is getting 2 bottles during the night, then it'll have a knock-on effect during the day, so they won't be taking in the correct amount during the day. So it's catch-22 then. So what I would recommend for that is, again, just give a very small bit of bottle. If your child wakes up before 4, half a bottle. And if your child wakes up sort of after 5, the smallest amount as you can get away with, and don't give full bottles.
Okay. What about just if they're very upset in the middle of the night? Children that I've heard lots of people, and there are texts coming in this morning, children that are almost wide awake at like ungodly hours in the middle of the night. What should the approach be? The same, going in, soothing them, walking out?
Exactly.
And continue.
It all goes down to how your child falls asleep initially. If they fall asleep with you rocking them or with a bottle in their mouth or a soother in their mouth, they'll wake up when they go into a light sleep stage during the night. Children spend a lot of the night in a light sleep stage, or changing from one sleep cycle to the next, and they wake up. Everybody wakes up. You might just turn in the bed, but a child can wake up if something has changed than from when they went to sleep. So this is where all the issues is. So the child wakes up and you think, oh, it's hungry, and it might not be. It might be that the bottle isn't in his mouth going to sleep, and that's why he needs that, just to get himself back to sleep. So you have to be careful as to what is the reason why he's waking up. So if that's the case, and your child you don't think can be hungry 5 times during the night, it's something else that's the problem, and you need to figure out what it is that your child is actually looking for. Now, in saying that, your child will be sick and things will happen, and your child will have nightmares and that, so there will be other issues.
But if it's something continuous,
if
and you've ruled out hunger and them being a bit cold and all those sort of things,
absolutely, then it's a sleep association that they're looking for, that you need to tackle. And on my website, Baby Sleep Academy, there's all sorts of information that people can look up, and hopefully it'll be of help to them in breaking these negative
because it is. I mean, I have a particular friend that's having a terrible hard time of it recently, and she just keeps saying to me, lack of sleep is one of the worst. It's literally like torture, and it is, and people would know that from early days. Everyone in early days when the baby's just born.
In the house. You know, if one person isn't sleeping,
it's a knock-on effect, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You're talking of rocking people to sleep. I got another email in. I've always rocked my 14-month-old toddler to sleep with no problems, but he's now beginning to wake every 2 hours during the night. Do you have any advice for me?
Well, as I said earlier, if he's used to rocking himself, being rocked to sleep, when he wakes up during the night, he doesn't know how to settle himself back to sleep without being rocked. So he needs you to rock him again. So for that, you can give him a gentle rock, but time limited for a couple of minutes. And then before he's asleep, could be sleepy, but before he's actually asleep, put him down in the cot. Now, he will probably cry, so you need to pick him up. Don't let him get too upset. Pick him up, give him a cuddle. Then put him down in the cot again once he settles, and you repeat that. Now, it could go on for a while. It's breaking the cycle.
So there's always going to be a couple of difficult days, isn't there, when you're implementing any of those things?
Unfortunately, there's no magic wands, but it can be done, and can be done very successfully. But once you psych yourself up for it and you know what you're doing, you have your plan, there's no reason in the world why you can't tackle the situation, but you just need to be prepared to give it time. And when I say time, like the first 3 or 4 days are the hardest, and after about 2 weeks you should see a considerable improvement in your child settling to sleep by themselves. Okay.
Ailish also says, should I continue to wake my toddler up at 7 o'clock every day? Somebody has told me this is a good time for rising. If you do happen to be fortunate enough to have a baby like my sister does that would sleep for Ireland, should you?
Well, it's up to yourself. It's whenever you want the day to start, really, you know.
So it's to work around your routine.
Exactly. 7 o'clock is generally a good time, 7 to 7, and it's the most common routine. And I have sample routines on my website, and like that, 7 o'clock is what I have based my routines on. But there's nothing to say that it can't be 8 o'clock and you push everything out. As a general rule of thumb, then you put your child back to sleep 2 hours after the first awake for a small baby, and then you gradually push that out by 10 or 15 minutes. But no, if you don't want your child to wake up at 7, that's fine.
That's so it's working around your routine. That's nice to hear.
Keep it have
regular.
It sort of this regular so that one day your child might wake up at 7, but then the next day might wake up at 9. You should find a balance in between that, so it just is regular for them, so that they have a regular bedtime then at night time as well.
Okay, another text in here. Any advice on baby crying hysterically when anyone except mum and dad picks her up? Going back to work soon, worried she won't settle in creche.
Yeah, well, it depends on the age. If the child is about 8 or 9 months old, they can go through separation anxiety, and that normally happens when the child is beginning to move around, and it's a difficult stage, and really have to comfort them and bring her maybe into places where she gets to meet other children. If she's going to a creche, I have a creche myself, be sure that you do lots of settling in, because it can be hard on them. It's probably harder for the mum, to be honest, but it can be hard on them. So bring them in for a week before they're due to start. Bring them in every day. Stay with them for the first while, depending on what way you're